I'm sitting here and I was planning our spring garden. This is the time of year that I normally get my garden planned and prepare the beds and start planting little seedlings in the house. And I talked to, I think, Angie yesterday, and she was asking us for a loofah update. So I figured that this year, since I've done this several years now, I would share with y'all some of these things that we do. Hey, Anika. And so I'm not going to stay long, but I did want to just come by and say, what are y'all sewing this year? I am sewing tons of things. And I sewed tons of things last year, so I'm just going to show you quickly. I have a couple of batches here. Let's see. These are all my veggies. These are some I'm going to sew directly. And then this is all my flowers. The flowers go on our septic hump and in the front yard. Some of these I don't have to re-sew because they come back every year, but that's not always the case. And so I haven't actually counted, but I'm going to show y'all my handy dandy. This is my gardening notebook. And so it has all of the years. I mean, it's all just kind of handwritten. Like this is what we planted 2019. And so every year I go through and I make me a little, just kind of like a illustration of the garden. It actually fits this way. And so our house is here. And then as soon as you walk out our backyard, there's a garden over here and then across the backyard. And so what I normally do is I try to rotate the crops every year if I've noticed something. Like last year, this big bed where I put the tomatoes in every year. Well, last year, Herb parked his Suburban right next to it, and it kind of changed the sun. And so it's still there. So this year I'm going to rearrange the tomatoes because what happens with the truck is at a certain point in the day, it blocks the shade. Now, many of you know I added a bed last year, and that's this bed. And all year, we just really got the bed ready. Yeah, I know, it's a garden map. And it rested, and it was built up, and then we planted kale and lettuce and what's the other one? Spinach and bean sprouts. And it kind of did okay, but it was the first year, and the first year didn't have all the nutrients and everything, and we try to do the no dig method, so we pile on instead of till. Tilling, we found, brings up a lot of weeds, and so we don't normally do that. So what I do is I first start with this map, and then I go through all of the remaining seeds that I had, and I had a lot remaining, and then I buy what's missing. Some of you have asked, how do we choose what we grow? Well, we kind of grow what we eat. This year, we're trying some things we don't normally eat, like Swiss chard, because I figured, why not? And so we planted Swiss chard in our winter garden. And they've actually been doing pretty good. And I don't know if y'all eat Swiss chard, but this is the first time we've been eating it. I just kind of added to the salad. And so I find out what I have, I find out what's missing based on what we eat, and then I map it out. And so I was sitting here mapping out each bed and what needs to be planted in them. And then I go in and I look at some of this stuff I already know, but like these tomatoes, these beefsteak, this is what Herb primarily uses in his buckling sauce. And so I look on the back, and then it takes beefsteak 80 to 96 days to harvest, which means that today when I'm sowing plants into trays, I'm going to sow these so they can come in early. Texas, about June, is usually 100 degrees. Tomatoes, once you get above 90 degrees, they won't fruit, and the ones that are on the vine will quickly dry up. And so I like to plant these early, so by the time we get to June, we're already fruiting, and then I can cover our garden to minimize some of the direct heat. So this year I'm doing something different because Herb and I eat a lot of berries, and so we buy these containers. Y'all seen these? They kind of close like that. Well, these are perfect for seedlings. Now, I have tons of trays like these too. But the problem with these is when I get ready to plant, that's a lot of dirt that I have to take out. And I normally plant them when they're about this size. So this is, I'm trying this year. It already has built-in holes. It's already kind of shallow. So when I take it out, I should be able to take out smaller plugs. So I'm very excited about that. And I'll give y'all a poppy in once these are all full. But what I'm going to do is all of the plants that have a very long maturity date. And so for us, that's going to be anywhere from 50 out days. These are going to be pre-sown in the house under lights, and I'll show y'all that when I get there. But then you have these plants that grow really, really fast, like radish. Radish takes about 30 days, and then I like these pink ones. They take about 30 days. These I'm going to sow directly in the ground later today. And in a month, I'll be able to go in and uproot them and then put something in that spot. And so part of why the planting is so important is because once you get everything sown, it never fails. I'm like, what did I put there? Now I'll label it, but I may not necessarily remember when it's going to be time to harvest. So this, the end of this is going to be some dates for me to be prepared to harvest. Because most of these things you can see above ground. Like we know when the tomatoes are ready because you can see them. But this, like this radish, it'll be underground along with the carrots. So I'll show y'all those. And so these, hey Natasha, I usually set in the calendar so the week before I'll get a notification that says just check the radish and then go out and push the dirt back a little to see where they're doing based on their expectation of harvest date, which this says is 27 to 35 days. And so I would normally put like 30. Blazing the tomato with a spray on your garden can help them start setting tomatoes again. Blast them with hard water until you can smell the vines. Ooh. Yeah, and I also I wonder because I found that when I hit the plant and the leaves with water on the tomatoes, um, they develop bacteria. And so, Roger, what I normally do is water from the bottom with a soaker. And so, what kind of tomato plants are you blasting with water and they're doing well? Because I bought a couple of new ones this year and I want to know what they are. But these beefsteak ones, if you hit their leaves with water and it's not the heat of the day, the water will mildew on the leaf and then it'll be working hard against that, against instead of seeding and flowering plants. But that's just my experience. But then this year, I bought these new ones from Home Depot yesterday, and they are supposed to be a little more hardy and prepared for Texas. Because, Roger, you probably know this, but in Texas, we can grow tomatoes up until like November because the weather is so warm. And so the tomatoes are a must for us because Herb puts them in his barbecue sauce. The other thing that I haven't done well on that I'm really excited about this year is corn. I plant corn every year and I have not gotten one corn yet. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but they grow up really well. But then once I use Better Boy, oh, okay. Last year I saw those. I'm gonna write that down because I've seen those at our HEB, and they're kind of big too, huh? So I'm going to do that. If you have any tips for corn, let me know. Ours grow, but they haven't developed the corn well. And so I've been researching that to see what I can do about it. But we get really good here. Peppers, eggplant, okra. Okra does well. I've been growing okra for over a decade because it's so prolific. They come out every single day. This year, I'm also doing two new vegetables. We don't often eat these, but I eat them at restaurants. And it's this one, this winter squash. Y'all please pray for our squash because we have squash bugs. And every year, I'm just desperately hoping to get one squash. These used to do well before we moved to this particular property, which has a lot of limestone, so we had to build up. But these, oh my God, last year I only reaped one. And this is what they call the patty pan squash or the scallop squash. It is so good. I harvested one out of 6 plants because squash bugs, they're like butterflies or moths, and they fly over the plant and drop things, drop like worms, and then the worm burrows into the vine and destroys the plant. And see, here's what happens. Every day you're going out there and they look beautiful and majestic, and then one day you go out and they're dying. And it's a squash bug. So I have done foil, I have done eggshells. This year I'm going to do a fleece netting over them until they fully develop, because I saw a guy in the UK doing it, and I'll let y'all know how it goes. But I'm so desperately wanting some squash. But those are new, and then this year I'm doing a green eggplant. We always do the black, and these do really well, but I've never done the green, and so they're supposed to be, what is this, sweeter. And so that's what I'm doing today. Oh, this is mildly sweet flesh. I like eggplant anyway because I think they're just so delicious. Now, the summer squash and the summer zucchini, they do well, but we don't have to worry about squash bugs with them. But the squash bug love these patty pans. And that's all I'm doing today. Well, that's what I'm doing for part of my day. You use 7 and... Do you? Last year I used that, Roger, because we had like a really bad ant outbreak, and I used it in the bed with the okra and the comfrey and the bean sprouts. And it really did good in that bed, but it didn't do anything for the squash bugs. And so I don't know what that's about. Oh, I'm also doing arugula. Have y'all tried arugula? We have a herb garden right outside the back of the house. And we normally have, and that's this one right here. So our back door is here, and this bed is right here. This bed is where we have basil and kale and oregano and rosemary and lavender. And this year I'm going to add arugula to it. It does really well. My only issue with it is it's right outside the back door, so I can easily grab things to cook. Well, the deer, they think is easy too. And so we have a deer problem. But this year, I'm going to use netting over this area. You love arugula? You know, I've been eating it more and more and more out. And so, but I had the best arugula at an Italian restaurant here last week. And I told her we are having arugula this year. And so I pray it's delicious, because not everything, well, that's not true. I was about to say not everything tastes good when you grow it yourself, but I think things taste actually better. Now, this is what I'm most excited about growing this year. Sprouts. We eat a lot of sprouts from the store. And I have grown these in a jar at the house, but I want to grow them outside. And I did last year for our rabbits. We grew, what's that other plant? It's not arugula. Alfalfa. And the alfalfa has already come back up. In the wintertime it's growing. And so I'm hoping that these bean sprouts will do well. You have to get the powder on the, apply it when they are actively feeding. And so when are they actively feeding? Because I haven't seen them since it's been cold. And do you apply it like at the root or around it like I've seen some people do? Because man, Roger, I need to get some patty pans. So this sprouts, I've done it in the house in those trays, but I've never done it in dirt where you go out and cut it. And so this year we're going to do that, because Herb and I can eat it on sandwiches, but then our rabbits, since we picked up new babies yesterday, they will be able to benefit from these too if they grow as prolifically as I'm thinking. And so that is everything. The hardest part every year is this stage, because I tend to overplant. And I don't know about y'all, usually in the morning. Okay. I'm going to try that this year, because, last year I tried these. We have chickens, so I have a huge bowl even today of eggs. And what I normally do is crush them down and then spread them around the plant. So I'm going to do that today too. And it really works on slugs and worms and then these aphids, but it just doesn't do anything so far for the squash bug plants, because they literally fly over. And so if 7 does work, that will be wonderful. Now, I don't typically like to put anything in the garden, but I mean, at this point, we're going to have to do something. I apply it over the top of the plant until they really. Now, have you found that it stopped the squash bugs? Because if so, I'm going to grab some of that today. I've used all of the stuff. I've used something called bee hormone. It's supposed to stop bugs from wanting to eat. It didn't do anything from the squash bugs. But let me show y'all this before I let y'all go. Bees are my favorite. When we lived in Germany, Herb and I, in Germany, right outside of, in the villages, I would say, at the train stops, there's normally like a flower patch. And what that looks like is this like an acre or two of land, and someone in the village has decided to uh, seed it with flowers, tulips, everything. And then there's an honor system. There's a machine out there where you can go in and put in $1, 50 euro, and then pick your own flowers. So we always have fresh flowers. Well, I thought we need to do that in America because these flower shops are so overpriced. So last year on our septic hump, I created a flower field, and it had sunflowers, and it had these beautiful things that I cut to bring in the house, and they're actually called Chief Red Flames. They are adorable. And then marigolds, because these keep away a lot of the deer. I also did these nasturtiums. These are great because they're actual edible flowers. And so I plant these in the garden and out because they also deter deer. We have a lot of deer. And so these flowers really work. And then this Mexican sunflower. And so last year, oh, and echinacea. These are in the front because these, along with the chamomile, are medicine and tea. But the sunflower hump, hey, good to see you, sis. The sunflower field was amazing for about a month. And while it was amazing, I had bird netting over it. And then I thought, well, when people come over, I want to be able to give them sunflowers. So I uncovered it. Baby, the night I uncovered it, the deer sent a text message to all the other deer. And the next morning, I had no more sunflowers. I mean, they had literally demolished the whole field, except for the painting daisies that were smaller. And I spent all of the rest of the season trying to get them pretty again, and it just never did happen. So this year, I'm going to keep the netting over them. And if I want flowers, just go underneath it, cut, and then leave it covered. Now, you don't really want to do that because it kind of diminishes the whole beautiful field look. But the deer are so disrespectful. So that's what we're doing this year. And once I move outside and start planting some of this stuff, some of it I'm going to sow in the house, some of it I'm going to sow directly outside because we can. And then I'll give y'all an update video. But this part of the year is my favorite part of the year because the spring garden is my best garden. This year I did a winter garden for the very first time, and it's actually done okay. Um, but the fall is usually pretty good too. But the spring is where I get all of the tomatoes and the eggplant and the okra. Oh my God, so much okra. Um, but I'm hoping my goal is to move us to a place where we are producing food all year long. Now, I didn't talk about the loofahs because I'm going to do a full blown update on the loofahs, but we are still picking loofahs. I mean, I have loofahs in our laundry room, there's loofahs in the garage, and there's still loofahs outside. And we only planted 3 plants, but I think we probably harvested, I don't know, 200, 300 loofahs easy from 3 plants. So we gave them out November, Christmas, and if you got a Happy New Year's gift from us too, it was probably loofahs. And so I'll keep y'all posted, but this is what I do. This is how I plan it. There's a million ways to plan it. This is just one I do because my handy dandy notebook, I can go through year after year and see what has happened, what did well, and what didn't do well. But I do want to move this to an electronic system because this is going on year 3 at this place. And once we get to year 5, this book is just not going to cut it. I need to be able to look at it online. So if y'all know of any gardening apps that are good and easy, let me know. That way I can do something besides this because this is the next page I'm about to do. This page is just my cheat sheet of the day it was sown and then the day I actually planted outside. So most of the stuff you saw, I'm going to sow inside today. And then in March, it will be planted outside. Only a few of them will be sown outside today. And that's because they grow up really quickly, like these radish in 30 days. I'll be able to harvest them. And the cool thing about that is the radish will condition the dirt around it. So when I pop it out and pop something else in, it'll just keep on to the races. Amen, amen. Well, I will see y'all later with some update videos. Many of you know we picked up 2 baby rabbits last night to be friends with Wheezy. And I'll show those two right now. They're sleeping in the tub in our bedroom. So we could keep an eye on them because they're too little to put outside, but we have started to build their new habitat outside where they'll go, in addition to Wheezy, who's out there. We don't think she's going to be able to have babies, so we picked up a boy and a girl, and we're just going to let Wheezy live out her life here in a heavenly space, free from the fear of being eaten or turned into a stew. And here's the thing, if you're going to get animals, don't name them. Naming them just wrecks the whole eating business. And so we picked up new baby chicks because the first 10 we bought 2 years ago, we named them. And so we have not eaten one of them. And so this time we're going to not name these precious ones. So over time, we can harvest and put them in the freezer. Because Herb and I believe that it's so necessary that we are self sufficient, especially the way 2020 was. If you didn't know it before, that was solid proof. You need to have food at your house to some degree. Now, working on toilet paper is the next goal. All right, I will see y'all later. Thanks, Roger, for all the tips. I'm gonna try that because the squash bug is my arch nemesis. For the last 3 years, it has won and I have lost. This year, I'm winning though. All right, love y'all. Talk to y'all later.